Welcome to a Talking Points web exclusive. I'm your host, Alex Amico. Today we're taking a look at the latest happening in the Philippines with recently elected President Rodrigo Duterte. As we Americans are close to electing a new administration, our neighbors in the Philippines are struggling with their own government conflicts. Since the election of President Rodrigo Duterte, the country has fought a so-called war against drugs, but other non-related conflicts have surfaced. Joining us now is Talking Points writer Lianza Reyes. Lianza is an international student from the Philippines. Her latest blog covering this issue is titled, "We Serve and Protect the Ruling Class." Lianza, thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
So let's start with this. As someone from the Philippines, what's your point of view of what's happening there right now?
Well, a lot of people are aware of the war against drugs and that a lot of people have been fighting the high use of drugs within the country. But within the country itself, there's also an increasing tension between power authorities and the general public. An example being the police and groups of indigenous people. For example, groups of indigenous people have been fighting their right to maintain their land. And at the same time, people have been against this, particularly the police, because they believe that their land should instead be used for business and military reasons. At the same time that this is happening, Duterte's actions have also been receiving a lot more international attention. Whether he'll be penalized for his actions by the United Nations or another governing body, we don't know. But he has been criticized by other leaders and other government officials within the country itself. And that's worth noting because it adds pressure on everyone else within the country, especially other officials, to help solve problems at stake.
You know, in America, we've had our own issues with indigenous people's land, particularly with the Dakota Access Pipeline. What's at stake for them when their land is in conflict with the government?
Well, I have to tell you that indigenous groups within the Philippines are one of the poorest and most marginalized groups within the entire country. And when they have their land taken away from them, that's their living and their cultural space. It's actually probably all that they ever have. So when you take it away from them, you are taking away their right to live and survive within modern society. So in recent events, more than 3,000 indigenous peoples have been trying to maintain their rights to their land because this is, again, their living and their cultural space. They've been trying to have certain laws brought up in 1997 to be repealed and also calling for more people among the general public to pay attention to their causes. So that's what's at stake for them.
Mm-hmm. And so going off, your blog talked a lot about the Philippine National Police and how they've been acting in some of these protests. Would you say they've been engaging in police brutality?
Well, the Philippine National Police is known for using defense tactics to stop protests and other chaos from transpiring. But what happened last October 19th is a little extreme. If you look at the footage of the video, you can actually see the police tugging on the hair of people that are protesting. You can also see how they were trying to ram over protesters. So I can say that they are treating people with a lot of cruelty, with a lot of brutality, because they are no longer fighting to stop a protest or to maintain peace, but they are actually fighting to abuse people and to scare them into believing that they have no right to protest what they believe in.
And so going back to one of the more high-profile issues, which is the war against drugs, President Duterte has released some statistics. Given those statistics, would it be fair to say that the war against drugs is working?
I think it's important to note that the actual statistics that he released are very dubious. In the speech, he had said that an average of 2 police officers die every day in the war against drugs. But if you look at what's actually happened, since July, only about 13 police officers have died since he went into office and since the war against drugs began. And he's also released a lot of dubious statistics in terms of what drugs are used and how many people need treatment and how many people actually use drugs. From the reliable statistics, there's only been a decrease in 80 to 90% in illegal drug use. You can say that there's been a considerable progress from over a decade ago or over a year ago, but there's also the issue that he has not been allowing for due process for drug users to occur. Even though he says it's not within his power, I still think that he has every right, and as a president, to actually allow due process to occur and to give rights to every person.
So that's how he's performing in the domestic sphere within his own country. On the international stage, he's come into conflict with President Obama. He's been trying to get closer with China. What do you make of everything he's been doing in international relations?
I think that sometimes when he insults certain governing bodies, like what he did with President Obama a couple of months ago, it is uncalled for, and in many ways it can be called rude. But it's also highly misinterpreted, because many of the times when he does insult other people, he does it in Filipino or in Tagalog, which is everyone's national language. And when he calls these people, it's not usually aimed towards the leader himself, but it's actually aimed towards the general public, or maybe to express his emotions. So many of the times that he does insult other people, he is largely misinterpreted. However, I do think that his actions and his attitude has a lot of international repercussions, and it can largely damage the economic progress that the Philippines has been making since our last president. You can actually see in recent years how the economy of the Philippines has been decreasing since Rodrigo Duterte took office, and how the Philippine peso to the US dollar exchange has been increasing rather than improving as it was with our former president.
It's certainly going to be an ongoing issue. Lianza, thank you for joining us. That's all the time we have for now. Thanks for tuning in. Make sure to check out Lianza's blog on CitrusTV.com and the rest of our web exclusives. I'm Alex Amico. Have a good day, Syracuse.